저희 회사 이름이 마스터디스라고 처음에 6년 반 정도에 서울에서 시작을 했어요. 저희가 we started this firm called Mass Studies, and that was about 6.5 years ago. And we call the name Mass ourselves a Mass because here things happen massively, but also studies. Our driving force is actually curiosity, and we consider ourselves as mostly as a student, not so much of a profession, because also here things changes very drastically, and so we are just spending a lot of time to understand and just assess the situation. And usually our contribution is through maybe through the process of understanding things. And actually, it was kind of deliberate to make a vague name, actually not as an architecture firm, but being in Korea, this part of the world actually has offered us actually so much architectural work that we've been actually quite boring architect. I think for us it's an incredible opportunity to participate and observe so many different perspectives and so many different kind of ways to involve through creative activity, but for us it has been that through purely as almost as an architect, mostly as an architecture as a firm, and although we consider ourselves quite diverse, we were engaged in quite diverse activities as an architect. So we are, in a way, this was our curiosity about Anyang, and we feel very fortunate to be part of this symposium. But I didn't choose it, but this was the part of the session. I believe it was mistranslated. It's not aesthetic, probably the values of artistic capitals within the economic and political value systems. Well, it's a big words, so and I kind of sorted out in a kind of a word that I felt more comfortable maybe. And actually, poem Kim Si-nim eloquently put it. Maybe one is about who should be the driving and the other should be the wheel this morning. And anyway, but somehow I kind of extended more words that sounded similar and maybe sort of expand. And apparently we've seen a lot of these couples. Often it'll be great to have a synergistic relationship between these two things, but often also sometimes it has to resist, sometimes we should say no, and sometimes it should have a different dynamism, but somehow seems like more and more there's a happy, perfect sort of, at least on the surface, and which could be potentially dangerous and exploitative, because also a lot of people doing very meaningful, serious things here, because we're also in the danger of sort of like exploited and maybe very kind of become kind of frivolous things. So it's kind of complicated, and it kind of I'm beyond my capacity in a way to understand this, whether it's a chaos or a complex system. I just call my title of the talk as 더 something, and 더 means more, but also as a sort of a verb, it's adding something. It's not a revolutionary approach, I would say, and it's more about adding something that is lacking and maybe improving something. And as an architect role, there are a lot about is actually I think also any creative people find themselves in a role of balancing things, so that sometimes if there's so much chaos, we try to put some order to it. Sometimes if it's so much orderly that it becomes too totalitarian, maybe we do crazy things. So it's always very relative and very specific, sort of moment-specific and very location-specific things that we've been doing. So in a way, our activity has been quite schizoid, but we've been quite hyperactive. And of course, 더 빨리, 더 크게 is more, English proper is a bit bigger and faster. This is kind of the operation that kind of create this contemporary Asian sort of this what they call compressed spatial temporal condition. And just to say, sort of give a background, maybe there's an excuse that 100 years ago, the world population was 1.6 billion, and which was 4 times smaller. That means 3/4 of what we call home, any physical settlement, is actually created over the last 100 years. And majority of that is actually in Asia. So that is actually quite daunting. And of course, Hong Kong, and that's why it creates this sort of incredible, sort of spatially compressed condition where almost 60s utopian sort of wet dream, European avant-garde, absurdist dream kind of becomes sort of the most banal, middle-class, happy, everyday life. This is not, we're not talking about Turkey in Istanbul, this is more, and then, of course, these kind of a growth, material growth, as we know, there's a serious distribution problems. So that currently the 2% of the rich owns 50%. And of course, also we see, this is a statistics, how the number of percentage of self-employment, 자영업자, as the country gets richer, like United States actually is only 7.4 point. Korea is still healthy, it's 32%. That means we still have a small mom and pop stores. Of course, that's gonna disappear soon. This is a Mike Judge, Beavis and Butthead director, did the movie last year, which wasn't very successful, but it's gonna soon turn into like a mega mall with slums around it. This is the polarity we're talking about. Of course, so this kind of a current economic crisis actually give us a really good opportunity to stop, halt, and actually it's a blessing in my understanding, because at least sort of make us to stop, but also create this sort of compressed in a spatial sense that also we say, I know it's like almost third world and the postmodern kind of coexist. And of course, this becomes this almost romanticized Blade Runner effect for expat communities, and this become also like sort of like a fetish, because we wipe out so much that it becomes like only small thing that is left is like this place with the memory, which is very important. But also as an architect, what's happening this 3/4 and these massive things. Also, 100 years from now, we really, as an architect, we feel quite responsible that we feel to somehow propose something. This is Shanghai. It's called Taikanglo. 2 years ago it happened, and now becomes this chic place. Shenzhen, Taipei, Macau. So one of the, actually another sort of a goal has become, not the issue about only quantity, but also this whole identity issue. Also yesterday we saw, 2 days ago, we saw one of the Anyang citizens, this lady was saying, oh, our village looks a little bit ordinary, we want something special. I mean, I heartfelt that. And of course, this Hilbersheimer, 80 years ago, utopian socialist workers' housing is more or less our middle class condition. And this is in North Korea. And of course, North Korea has a better color scheme, and what identifies, what makes it different, South and North is the corporate logo, Weibu apartment. Currently, we have 100 apartment brand, it's called, one of them, you have not, we have. And then the other one is under the great leader, let's defeat, we're gonna win, So anyway, so there's, in this kind of setting, often architects, especially the famous ones, gets invited to design these kind of things, Daniel Libeskind, and this is, I'm not saying this is good or bad, but I just should tell you the fact that they're both hired when the steel construction was up already, and they just were asked to dress up the building. So it was very kind of, identity was also approached in a very kind of instant sort of import, and one did actually much more creative than the other, in my opinion. And our first task, actually, when I first landed here, first project was this Pixel House, was actually a lot to do with identity, and it was actually much more difficult task because it was a house for a family who was blacklisted because they were student protester, protests in the 80s, so they're blacklisted that they couldn't get a proper legal job until 2 years before they met us, until the Kim Dae-jung government. So they were teaching, as a tutor. They went to best school in Korea, and they had 2 kids at the time, 9 and 7. And they tell me they only have money for a 70 square meter house, and not that they need 70 square meter, but that's how they kind of calculated that's through with the money they have. And they say they want to have something doesn't look like any house that existed in Korea, because they don't want their kids to go to same looking house and thinking the same and behaving the same.